Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Cleveland. My name is Mark Weber, and for a few more months at least, I'm a member of the congregation's Board of Trustees. So, why are you here? Well, you're here because you believe in democracy, but also you're here because we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every human being, every person. And that would be, of course, not just citizens, not just the rich, not just the so-called respectable, but everyone. We respect the work and the values of Indivisible, and we believe that your values and our values align. And therefore, you're here, and we are pleased that you're sharing our space, and I hope that you will all have a productive meeting today and whatever comes after. And one of the reasons why this is important, a couple of weeks before Passover, I was shopping for Passover, and I was coming out of the store, and a man in a pickup truck drove by, and he stopped and rolled his window down and said to me, he said he'd seen the bumper stickers on the back of my car, and he said, you know, you're the kind of people we should really round up. And on the back of his truck was a bumper sticker which said, round them up. So we as Unitarians and you as concerned citizens have work to do, and I wish you the very best this afternoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Patrice Shawn, and I am co-chair for Indivisible NEO, along with Tom Zip. Tom, you want to raise your hand, stand up? And I just wanted to share a little bit of information about Indivisible Northeast Ohio. We came together in January of 2025 out of the same urgency that brought all of us here today, to resist the Trump agenda. We started with 12 people at that first meeting in January, and we've grown into a group of 1,000 or more today through social media, in-person meetings every other week at St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Cleveland Heights, and events like this today. Our key principles are to remake democracy, embrace progressive values, coordinate, collaborate, and build a strong and strategic movement. Indivisible, the national group, was founded in 2016 by congressional staffers Leah Greenberg and Ezra Levin. It was in response to Donald Trump's election as president. The objective was to effectively resist the dramatic move to the far right in the executive branch of our U.S. government. Indivisible is a movement of thousands of group leaders and more than 1 million members nationwide. We are taking regular, continual, and increasingly complex actions to resist the MAGA agenda, and we fight for a progressive policy through nonviolent actions. We make calls, we educate, we show up, we speak with our neighbors, we organize. We demand elected leaders, regardless of the political party, to work for our democracy. Our opponents depend on a divide and conquer strategy, so we treat an attack as an attack on all of us. We show up for each other, and particularly for those who are facing the brunt of a right-wing ideological attack. Today, it is for immigrants and students whose visas are being revoked and are being denied due process. I encourage you to go to our national group's website to learn more about Indivisible. It's indivisible.org, and join us, Indivisible Northeast Ohio, on Facebook and on Blue Sky. And I'd personally like to take this opportunity to thank Laura Cioccia, my fellow member on NEO's leadership team, for organizing this event. Laura brought us another very important event in March by organizing a constituent town hall held in Parma that focused on the human toll of Trumpism in Northeast Ohio. So thank you, Laura, for your team and your volunteers.
Thank you, Patrice. Thank you, everybody, for being here. So we pulled this together in record time because we felt like it was necessary that we go on record and publicly register our dissent to what's happening. I wanted to share something that's been on my mind that may or may not resonate with other people, just to underscore the reason that we're gathering. As you heard Mark eloquently state, we are here out of a shared concern for humanity and the individual lives being ripped apart. We are here because silence and inaction is the gasoline of autocrats, and we are also here because of the existential threat that these policies pose to our democracy. None of these principles require what we might consider to be a perfect protagonist. We don't need to wait for somebody who looks like us, prays like us, or believes exactly as we do. We don't need to know their background or why they came here or even how many laws they may have broken. These are the dangerous traps used by autocrats to defend the indefensible. And we must be smarter than that. Othering, as we know from history, is a distraction, and it is a way to justify persecution instead of confronting injustice. Our Constitution, through the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, guarantees that no state shall deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So as much as this fight is about human rights, it is not about any one individual. It is about defending the rule of law, the promise of equality, and the soul of our democracy. So let us absorb these stories, however imperfect they may be. Let their faces and voices move our hearts, knowing that saving one person today is part of saving our democracy for tomorrow. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, actually two speakers, on behalf of a grassroots effort that was born out of the ICE raid that happened at the Cleveland Heights restaurant, Cilantro, that I'm sure most of us have heard about. This grassroots effort took a terrible situation and used it to mobilize. They worked tirelessly and have been working tirelessly to get Know Your Rights information out to local Cleveland Heights businesses while encouraging them to pledge their support to the immigrant community. Representing those stories, I'd like to introduce Andres. Is he here? Here he comes. Please welcome Andres. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name's Andres. I'm a student at Case Western Reserve University, and today I'm just going to talk about some of the work that we've been doing and a little bit about my story. So I was born and raised in Ecuador, and I decided to come to the United States for college. It was a decision that I made with my family, and at the time I considered the benefit of an education in the United States compared to what the possibilities were in Ecuador. And it brought me here to Cleveland, and I really liked my time here. I've been here for about 5 years, and it's been a big change, but a lot of growth, a lot of becoming has happened for me. But in these recent times, with the new administration and all the deportations that have happened, it's just become an awful situation. I remember in January seeing the incident that happened at Cilantro. Was horrifying to see. On a personal level, I have friends of mine that both documented and undocumented that were kind of frantically reaching out to me because either they were cutting their hours or they were just afraid of their status in their country. It caused a lot of despair. It caused a lot of despair to see this big, looming, scary specter try to take people who are just here to try to live their best life. In those moments, I thought about my mom. My dad's side of the family is from the United States, but my mom's side of the family is from Ecuador. And right now, we've been in the process of trying to get her through her citizenship process. And we started kind of in 2024, and when this new administration came in, it's like the whole world flipped. It was a scary process, and I felt very afraid. I felt very powerless, and that motivated me to try to work where I could have an impact, to try to work within my own community. So that's why I joined the grassroots effort for Cleveland Heights for immigrant rights. We've been doing work like providing businesses with Know Your Rights training and trying businesses to get to sign on a pledge who are in support of immigrants so we can rally a coalition of supporters. I know that in the future we're trying to push for legislation to make Cleveland Heights, solidify Cleveland Heights as a place that is safe for immigrants. So for me, taking action in the face of despair, in the face of powerlessness, has not only brought me closer to my community, but also just made me feel like I'm helping those who do not have a voice. And I think who are not able to have a voice right now, but it's not that they don't have a voice, but their voice could be used in deporting them. I mean, we're seeing it time and time again, that people are just being zip-tied and shipped away. People who are citizens, and even if they weren't citizens, they're just human beings. And that's horrifying. And I think for those of us who do have the privilege of being able to speak up with less repercussions than they do, it's absolutely necessary to stand up for those right now. I guess I have just a few more things to say, especially about just the immigrant experience, I guess. I mean, I think you all understand how we're all just people here. regardless of where we came from, regardless of our citizenship status, we're all just people. And immigrants, just like anybody else, are also people. And the fact that this administration, from the very beginning of the campaign, has served to demonize those people, people who are doing nothing but just trying to live their happiest life. Not only that, I think something I want you all to understand is just how grueling of an experience it is to upend your life in one place and move somewhere where you might not even know the language. You don't know anybody. You're having to start from scratch and just trying to provide for you and your family. That's it. And these people are being chased. And these people are having to feel like there's someone watching them at all times. I've spoken to coworkers of mine who feel they don't feel safe. I don't feel safe at times, even though I'm a citizen. I don't feel safe because that's not even a protection now. So, I mean, I have the biggest respect for immigrants. Immigrants are really the backbone of this country, and I want to fight for them. I want to give them their voice. I want to make sure that they're able to live their happiest life, wherever that may be. Thank you.
Also representing Cleveland Heights for Immigrants' Rights, I'd like to welcome up Sheila Keller. And Sheila is a community labor and immigrants' rights organizer and one of the leaders of Cleveland Heights for Immigrants' Rights. And she's going to be sharing more about the work that they've been doing over the past 3 months and the impact on her community.
It's very emotional being up here today. I'm realizing it's making me want to cry. Because I've worked in immigrant rights for a number of decades now and gotten to know people personally who are undocumented and unafraid. Undocumented and unafraid sometimes. That's a quote from, I was kind of raised up as an immigrant rights organizer in Colorado, where they now have some of the best pro-immigrant laws. And that movement showed me that we can't decide in advance for people in positions of, lack of privilege, what role they're going to take in our movements. So in that movement in Denver, people got up in front of crowds of thousands, tens of thousands, and talked about how they were undocumented and unafraid. So, that came to my mind first just because I knew the pain that they were going through daily because of oppressive laws and discrimination, but I also saw that, I see a lot of white folks here today like myself, and we don't get to decide for immigrants what role they play in this movement. So I just want to start with that because I think there's, often a level of let's protect people, let's make sure, but really those folks who are most affected will get to decide what role they play in our movement. And some will want to step out and make a statement, and that's their choice. And others will say, I can't do that right now, and I need to be protected, and I need you as an ally to step up for me. And that's good too. And I guess, I started organizing because of one of the folks in the audience here. I was an intern with Cleveland Peace Action, Nina. I just ran into her for the first time in decades, was one of the people who mentored me. So that makes this, a nice full circle for me. That was my first step into organizing 20 some years ago. And since then, especially in Colorado, I got to see a state that had some of the worst immigration laws turn into a state that is now some of the best pro-immigrant climate, even though of course there's still a lot of oppressive things going on there, as in everywhere, because of coalition work. And as I've come back to Cleveland, I moved back here about 7 years ago with my son being 1 at the time, to be near family. You know, something I would like to see Cleveland Heights really take to heart is, how do we work in coalition? How do we work together? How do we make sure that across gender, across race, across class and age, we're coming together for immigrant rights, for other issues? And that's part of the message I want to share today, because I think it's going to be important if we want to become a state like Colorado, if we want to have a win here, if we want to be able to pass legislation that protects immigrants. How can we work across what has previously been divides to become more powerful? And so, as was mentioned, our grassroots movement, we're not an organization, started in January after the raids at Cilantro. And just like so many of you here today, we were like, we've got to do something. It's no longer okay to not do something in our own community. So in partnership with AMI, we went out and canvassed local businesses and passed out Know Your Rights information. And then separately, as Cleveland Heights for Immigrant Rights, we went back and said, will you sign this pledge? It's just symbolic, but it states, I'm ad-libbing here, we are in favor of immigrants in our community, and we will do our best to protect them. And over 70 businesses signed on. Over 100 expressed an interest in a further deeper rights, Know Your Rights training. And we talked to over 200 businesses. And I brought my kids with me on some of those, and I was just so happy to see that Cleveland Heights is the community that I was told it was when I was raised here. People handed out candy to my kids, they gave them toys. I mean, we might as well have been going trick-or-treating. So it was beautiful to see. And right now, there is so much we can do. If you're feeling forlorn, if you're feeling like, what can I do? I've got to take action. There is so much. In preparation for today, I probably am not going to try and shuffle through my papers, but I printed out all these policies that I got to witness being passed in Colorado that changed that state from anti-immigrant to very pro-immigrant. And one of the basic ones that we need to see passed here now in Shaker and Cleveland Heights and University Heights is that police won't cooperate with ICE. And why is this important? This is extremely important because the #1 way that immigrants get caught up in the immigration system is by local police passing on information from their database to that ICE database. Otherwise, they wouldn't be caught in the system. Statistically, immigrants are not committing heinous crimes. It's traffic violations that in the first place put them in that police database, the local police database. And so we're not talking about criminals here, but we're treating them like criminals. And so if some of you know Lynn from the Ohio Immigrant Alliance, she gave me a statistic to share today. Our jail system for immigrants has grown by 1,000% in the last couple of weeks here. And that is basically a money-making profit deal. We need to fill the beds that are probably not filled now because we're not criminalizing marijuana anymore, and we're gonna fill them with immigrants. And how are we going to do that? Our police are going to pass the information on to ICE. ICE is going to arrest people for traffic violations, but now they know where they are, how to find them, and take them into their system. So luckily, just in the last few days, a number of sanctuary cities, which that word means cities that have passed laws that protect immigrants and state that local police and local law enforcement won't interact or cooperate with ICE. So a number of sanctuary cities had a lawsuit against Trump, and they won, that said, Trump and your administration, you can no longer threaten to take away federal funding from us for passing sanctuary city legislation, which I know is a fear of some of our city council people and maybe even some of us here in the audience here. But I think now it's an excuse. So now we can expose our local politicians if you have any excuse to not pass these laws to ensure that we're not cooperating with ICE, then you're doing it because you don't want to, not because there's a valid reason. And so I encourage everybody to take action to try and pass. That's just one example. I mean, I brought in so many, but I'm not going to take the time to read through. You can go online, you can Google Sanctuary City, and you can pull up legislation from any number of cities and find out some other examples of ways we can, solidly protect immigrants in our community. And there's also small ways, talking to people, sharing openly your feelings about, no, it's not just quote unquote legal immigrants who are human and deserve protection and rights. It's also undocumented folks who are also human, who also deserve rights in our community. And we're standing up and we're saying that. And there's a lot of ways to get involved with Cleveland Heights for immigrant rights. We're going to be doing Know Your Rights trainings directly to employees and businesses. As Andres mentioned, we're going to be working to pass legislation specifically in Cleveland Heights, and many other things. So there's a QR code on the flyer you're receiving from today. Please reach out, ask questions, get involved. We're completely grassroots movement, so many of us lift the tide, and that's the idea. So I'm just so happy to see everybody here today, and thank you.
Okay, next up we have Graham Ball. He is the outreach coordinator for AMI, Americans Making Immigrants Safe, a grassroots nonprofit dedicated to supporting the well-being of immigrants and their families on their path to self-sufficiency. In the 4 years he spent working with refugees and asylum seekers in Northeast Ohio, Graham has earned a reputation that precedes him as a stalwart and passionate advocate for the immigrant community. In addition to his work with AMI, Graham is also pursuing his master's degree in forced migration with the University of London. Please welcome the man who needs no introduction in rooms like these, Graham Ball.
That was a very kind introduction, and I feel I don't deserve it. Thank you. Thank you to the speakers who've come before. You've spoken very well, very compelling. And thank you all for coming out today on this kind of dreary afternoon. This is the kind of continued resistance and continued anger that we need to have to be able to resist this Trump administration. So I am here today, of course we're all here today to talk about the 62 international students at Ohio colleges and universities whose visas have been revoked by the Trump administration. My great-grandparents immigrated to Cleveland more than 100 years ago. Like almost all of us, my ancestors are immigrants. I'd like to talk to you about the contributions that immigrants make, these threats that they're under, and what we can all do about it. In my work every day, I am moved by the resilience and the hope and the bravery exhibited by immigrants who have left their old lives behind to seek new lives in safety and prosperity in the United States and here in Cleveland. The story of Northeast Ohio is the story of immigrants. We don't know who the original indigenous people who lived in Northeast Ohio were because they left the area hundreds of years before we have records. But we do know that in the 1700s, indigenous tribes like the Shawnee, the Miami, the Erie, the Delaware, these folks were displaced to the mouth of the Cuyahoga River meaning the Crooked River. They were displaced by colonialism in the colonies in New York. And then, they came here for a little while and they were displaced again, right? But even the original indigenous people that we know about here were immigrants. You look around Cleveland today, and you can see evidence of every wave of immigration that have made this city what it is. There's the cultural gardens on MLK Drive, the national halls in Slavic Village, neighborhoods like Asiatown, Little Italy, and Little Arabia. These are all the things that tell the cultural story of our city, that tell the story of the immigration waves that have come here. From the Great Migration of African Americans after the Civil War, to Irish folks who came here fleeing the famine, to Eastern Europeans after World War II, to the Southeast Asians and Puerto Ricans in the 1970s, Haitians and Lebanese folks in the 90s, refugees from the Middle East in the 2000s, to the Afghans, Ukrainians, and Congolese folks in the 2020s. For 150 years, every generation of Clevelanders has seen a new wave of people who have left their countries, their families, their homes, left everything they knew, and came here to this city. Some came because they sought a brighter future for their children. Some came because they had to leave, facing war or persecution or some other horror for which their old lives became unlivable. But no matter why they left their homes, when they got to Cleveland, they faced similar difficulties to overcome, like discrimination, poverty, and then ultimately, with hard work, deepening Cleveland's cultural wealth and making substantial contributions to our society. Even today, we know vibrant Hispanic communities in places like Clark Fulton, Councilwoman Jasmine Santana is now receiving racist hate mail at her home. This is bigotry, and it is abhorrent, and it is directly connected to the rhetoric coming out of the Trump administration and MAGA. We've seen firsthand the joy and the beauty exhibited by our immigrant neighbors. I know we all are devastated by the Trump administration's aggressive attacks on our friends, our coworkers, our classmates, our community members. These raids on restaurants like Cilantro and Barocco are a disgrace. They are attacks on the pillars of our communities, and we must tell Trump and Elon to get their hands off of our communities. Their goal is to make us feel less safe. Their goal is to make us scared to speak out, scared to resist. But we will not be afraid. We will not be silent. We will resist. Yes. Because we know what's coming. We know that we must resist, and we know what's coming because we're students of history. We know what's coming because he's told us what's coming. Right? Trump is enacting his Project 2025 agenda to terrorize and deport as many people of color as he can and to destroy our Constitution in the process. So let me break this down for y'all. On day one, Trump issued a slew of executive orders targeting every institution that we hold dear in this country, and he has not slowed down since. Right? So he's trying to remove and revoke temporary protective status from hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans, Haitians, Ukrainians, folks who have been here for years, have fled danger in their home countries, and have only now been able to work, been able to build their lives. As Sheila mentioned, they are increasing the detention capacity in Ohio and across the country. Right? But that's not enough. They're sending innocent people to inhumane prisons in El Salvador and in Guantanamo Bay. Someone pointed out online that Auschwitz was not in Germany, it was in Poland. Right? If you put someone away, like Kilmar Abreu Garcia, then they can't come back. Oh, we don't have control. It's ridiculous, but this is this playbook, right? It's not a surprise. We know. So he's frozen refugee admissions. I worked for 3 years for a refugee resettlement agency. Now we've got no more people coming in. In fact, I just heard recently that the IOM, the International Organization of Migration, is now hiring people in roles that will be sending people back, sending refugees back home. Blatant violations of international law, but the IOM will yield to the Trump administration because of the funding. Right? That's how these things always go. But he is using these points of immigration to tear down our Constitution. So, some examples. The Laken-Riley Act. Some of you may have heard, Trump touted this in his State of the Union. This was passed this year by Congress, and essentially, it allows expedited deportation for folks who have been accused of a crime, not convicted, just accused of something like shoplifting. Enables deportation without due process. That is, no day in court, no judge, just deported, just gone, right? That is completely insane because, of course, if you don't have your day in court, that means you don't have an opportunity to provide any documentation. That means that any one of us here could be picked up by ICE and they say, you're a gang member, you're an immigrant, and now you're gone. You're in El Salvador or anywhere, right? It's an incredible threat on us. And what really kills me is how many Democrats voted for this bill, right? Specifically Democrats in Ohio, Greg Landsman out of Cincinnati, Amelia Sykes, and Marcy Kaptur all voted yes on this bill, which completely destroys our legal system. Yes, boo. Ugh. So right now, we're seeing the impact of this. I've been talking about this for months, right? But now we're seeing it, right? And then people, like these faces that we have here, I'm so glad we have these. People are being deported, innocent people, without due process, and now they're gone. They say we can't bring them back. So all of these actions are being challenged in the courts, but the Trump administration is just ignoring the courts, right? So if the courts don't have the power to issue mandates, then where does the power lie? Only in the executive, in the supreme executive, all right? So we're in a very, even right now, in this moment, this past week, we are in a constitutional crisis where if the courts are not sending marshals to the White House to arrest the Attorney General, then the courts suddenly have no more power. I haven't seen them send marshals. So what does that mean, right? So I think, you know, what I want to bring home, of course, I'm wearing this keffiyeh. These attacks on our Constitution started with attacks on Palestinians. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, revoking the visas of students and educators, they were Palestinian advocates whose crime was attending a rally or writing an op-ed, right? When folks like Mahmoud Khalil, Rumeza Ozturk, and Badr Kansuri were arrested by plainclothes ICE agents and taken to far-flung detention centers, we didn't stop that. We didn't stop the Trump administration from doing this. And now, 1,400 more students across the country have had their visas revoked. And these, I know some of these students. These are students who are not vocal supporters of Palestine, but they are from a Middle Eastern country. Maybe they're Muslim, right? They didn't even do the op-ed, right? But because the op-eds, the attack on Palestinians opened the door, and we didn't stop them, and now everyone is at risk. These students include folks at Cleveland State University, Ohio State, University of Cincinnati, Bowling Green, the University of Akron, Kent State, and many others in Ohio and across the country, right? These are our kids. And enabling this further, so in last year, Case Western Reserve charged 11 students with felonies for protesting for Palestine, right? They're still being litigated, they're still going through the court with this, right? But Case Western charging these kids with felonies for protesting is then enabling the Trump administration to revoke the visas of folks who are supporting Palestine. It's enabling them to then revoke the visas of international students. Right, so you see how we make one concession, or we move towards fascism in one way, whether that's our Democrats voting for the Lincoln Riley Act or criminalizing our student protests. And when we do this, we enable and we are complicit in the Trump administration's agenda. We have to understand that these fights are not fought in isolation. When we are protecting one of us, we have to protect all of us. Right? They are all intersectional. It's all together. So, I ask you, do we stop caring about our neighbors when they are undocumented? No. Do we stop caring about our neighbors because they're Palestinian? No. Do we stop caring about our students when they protest? No. We know that when they come for one of us, they come for all of us. Yes. You're all familiar with the poem by the German theologian Martin Niemöller, First They Come. The modern version of this poem would be first they come for trans people, and I did not speak up because I am not trans. Then they came for Planned Parenthood, and then they came for the Palestinians, then they came for the immigrants. We are already many lines deep in this poem, and I'm telling you, it's not a long poem, right? So, I mean, what's next? Is it judges who help immigrants, like Hannah Dugan and Judge Joel Cano? Is it teachers? Is it unions? Is it shutting down organizations like Indivisible? We have to speak up. We can't fall victim to those same mistakes of history because we know them, right? So we will speak up for our immigrant neighbors. We will speak up for our trans neighbors. We will speak up for everyone who is under threat of deportation or imprisonment or death under this Trump regime, because no one is coming to save us. We have to save us. So right now I'm calling on you to make a commitment, to commit to joining an organization, right? Find an organization, maybe that's one of the groups speaking here today, but find an organization who is doing good work in your community and get involved. And I see you are an active group, you're passionate, you're out here in this cold day, so I'm making another ask, and that is to bring a friend with you, all right? I was just last week going to a Democratic Socialists of America meeting, and I thought of my friend who does a lot of talking about politics, but not a lot of doing with the politics. And I was like, I gave him a call and invited him out, right? And it's a lot more fun to fight fascism when you do it with your friends, right? So when we organize, we keep our communities safe. We build bonds of trust that demagogues cannot break. When we organize, we tell Trump and Elon to keep their hands off of our communities. When we organize, we win. So let's fight for the future we want to see. Let's build a strong community that is not afraid of Trump and Elon. Let's build a community where we protect each person as we protect the whole. So join an organization, bring a friend, abolish ICE, and free Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Okay, next up we have Subodh Chandra. Subodh is a former federal prosecutor, law director for the city of Cleveland, and large firm litigator. He is also the founding and managing partner of the Chandra Law Firm. Subodh has handled numerous high-profile civil rights cases, including representing the family of Tamir Rice, the 12-year-old boy murdered by Cleveland police in 2014. More recently, he was behind the private citizen-led criminal charges against Donald Trump and J.D. Vance for their misconduct towards Springfield and its Haitian community. And at this moment, and at this moment, he is actually involved in litigation against DOJ and the OMB. And if that's not enough, he's also a gifted thespian and singer. And we are especially fortunate that today he will be following his talk with a performance of Billy Simon's We Are Great Again, accompanied by guitarist Doug Williams, correct?
No, it'd be my son.
Oh, your son. Okay, sorry. And his son. So to speak about the challenges to the rule of law, our democracy, vigilance, and what we can all do, please give a warm welcome to civil rights champion and karmic facilitator, Subodh Chandra.
Thank you. January 20th hit us all like a hurricane. A hurricane that we knew was coming from the November election, but we all thought, based on past experience, it might be Category 3 or Category 4. But instead, it hit us at Category 5+. And we're only 3 months in, and I know we're all reeling. My solemn task today is similar to the last speaker, I'm going to be doing an aerial view of some of the hurricane damage. some of which will be familiar to you, some of which may be news to you, because the amount of damage is so extensive that we can't all possibly keep up with all of it, even if we, as I suspect some of you do, and I know I do, are doom scrolling half of the day. So, while that is a solemn task to take you through that aerial view, what I promise you is at the end, I will lay out many ideas for all of you in this room to take to heart and adopt and implement so that we can fight back. Because it's not enough to doom scroll. It's not enough to rend our garments, and I can promise you I have a lot of rended garments on the floor of my bedroom. But we have to take action, each of us individually and collectively. So, let me just start off with some personal news as to how this has affected my own family's life. My wife, Meena Mori Chandra, is here. She was once a line attorney in the U.S. Department of Education Office for Civil Rights, which has an office here in Cleveland that has jurisdiction over Ohio and Michigan. They oversee law enforcement of civil rights laws in education, K through higher education. They've handled a lot of famous cases that many of you are familiar with, including my wife was lead of that office when they were investigating the Larry Nassar case involving Michigan State. That was the physician who assaulted gymnasts, and it was covered up by Michigan State officials, and they broke that story and investigation and held Michigan State accountable. It's a storied office, and my wife was senior executive service there, and she was determined to tough it out over the next 4 years and be a good public servant and civil servant and do her job, and above all, protect her people. She had oversight over the Chicago, Kansas City, and Dallas offices at that point in her career. But also was temporarily in charge of Cleveland for reasons I'm going to explain momentarily. And let's just say the Category 5 hurricane hit. What happened first was, across the agency, was that many people were placed on paid administrative leave in the agency. And the common thread among almost all of them was that they had either served on diversity-related committees that, ironically enough, get this, had been formed under the last Trump administration by Donald Trump's own political appointees from the first administration. That's all they had done, right? Or they had taken diversity-related training offered and encouraged by the department across administrations. That was it. That was the common thread. Paid administrative leave, silent. Think about government efficiency and how stupid that is to send people home with no explanation and a statement in the notice that this is non-disciplinary. Okay, which that has a benefit to the administration, which is there's no real meaningful appellate rights from it. Now, one of the victims of this, there were many, many victims of this, and I represented and counseled a lot of them, but one of the victims of this was, and this was written about in the New York Times, was a United States Army veteran who served our country during the Iraq War, deployed troops post 9/11 overseas to Afghanistan, served his country faithfully, had a service-related disability, and as a result, that gave him the opportunity to, when he left the armed services, to pursue other federal employment, got his law degree on the GI Bill, and worked his way up through the ranks to eventually be the director of one of these offices. This is the treatment of this administration of our public servants and of our veterans, and we've seen this across the government. Now, in this room today are many of the people who served in the U.S. Department of Education Office for Civil Rights in Cleveland, and that entire office was wiped out about in the last few weeks. I'd like those individuals, if you're willing to please rise and stand and be recognized by our community.
We thank you for your service. We salute you for your service. And we know that every day you ensure equal opportunity in education without fear or favor, whether it was based on race, whether it was based on sexual harassment, gender discrimination, disability discrimination. We know that you leveled the playing field in education from K through higher education in ways that were unheralded and uncelebrated and only sometimes made the news. We know you made a difference, and we know that whatever you do next, you're going to continue to make a difference. But our country owes you a debt, and that's a debt that will never be repaid because you had careers that were cut short that should never have been cut short. And I hope that one day you get the opportunity to return to service. But if you don't, I hope you'll be out there mentoring the next generation of public servants when we take this country back. That's just one example. I wanted to share the first